Hey everybody, this is Dana Lane for SBR Picks. It is real close to the start of the National Hockey League season, so we thought it would be fun taking a look at the 10 biggest stories facing the league this year as we go into the 2017-2018 season. We're going to start this off with the high expectations in Dallas, and Dallas is right now at 14-1 to win the Stanley Cup, and in order to fulfill those expectations, it's not beyond a reasonable expectation to think that Jamie Benn has to return from his kind of a dip that he took last season. It was a 20-point dip from 2015 and 2016. He needs to perform a lot better than he did last season to catapult the Dallas Stars into the playoffs. Of course, Ken Hitchcock is back behind the bench, and if we remember back in the day, 18 years ago, 17, 18 years ago in 1999, Ken Hitchcock won the Stanley Cup with the Dallas Stars. So I think a lot of people are remembering that. The only thing with Hitch is you better make sure that there's somebody in that dressing room to kind of be the buffer between Hitch and some of the players, because as the season goes on, his message kind of wears thin. So and look, the Stars went out and certainly made a lot of moves. They traded for and signed Ben Bishop to a 6-year, $29.5 million contract. They signed Martin Hanzal. They signed Alexander Radulov, who was a free agent, and defenseman Mark Mathot, who they acquired in a trade from the Vegas Golden Knights, rather. So that's number 10 for me, the biggest the story of the upcoming season. The number 2 story is certainly kind of interesting. We're going to watch the Washington Capitals as they're 12-1 to win the Stanley Cup. And, believe it or not, I mean, we all know that the Capitals have had some amazing regular seasons, rather, but the Capitals in the postseason have not been very good at all. In fact, it's been since 1998. That's 19 years that they have not been past the second round. And we think of the Capitals of having, President Cup trophy winning regular seasons, but that has not equated into playoff success. So they're gonna be an interesting story going into this upcoming season as well, as they sit at 12-1. I do expect big years out of TJ Oshie, who just signed a brand new contract. I do expect Alexander Ovechkin to have a big year as well, another 30-goal year from Ovechkin. These two guys, it is imperative that they stabilize this team offensively to move forward. And of course, in net, it's very important for Braden Holtby to have another fantastic year. This is a team that surrendered just 182 goals last season. That was the lowest mark in the league by 13 goals. So defensively, they were phenomenal. Just couldn't get it done in the playoffs. And it's the same old song and dance for the Washington Capitals. I think they're going to make the playoffs this year, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as it has been in previous seasons. And to me, a little bit of pain going into the playoffs is going to help Barry Trotz's team. So that's a number 9 story that I'm looking at. The number 8 story that we're looking at is the Colorado Avalanche, who's sitting right now at 101 to win the Stanley Cup. And guys, if I'm watching a Colorado Avalanche fan, and the team is trying to sell me, I'm buying season tickets. I'm really not sure what it is that they're trying to sell me. They did absolutely almost next to nothing in the offseason. They did go out and get Jonathan Bernier for $2.75 million. He's going to back up Varlamov. They did go out and get Nail Yakupov, who was signed along with a 2019 4th-round pick, was traded to Nashville for Colin Wilson. So they did a few things, but they're still looking at Matt Duchene still being a Colorado Avalanche. And, that's really not a surprise to me, considering the fact that Joe Sakic's asking price was way too much. And honestly, if he was a 30-goal guy, then certainly that would be something that would be fair to ask. But where he is right now is in his career, although he's had tremendous success on the international stage, he certainly has the numbers that he accumulated last season does not translate into getting a first-round selection and a prospect like Joe Sakic wants. Toronto Maple Leafs is my next story that we're looking at moving into the new season. Honestly, guys, you won't find a deeper forward group than the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have 3 strong lines. They have 2 potent power plays. They have 6 forwards last year with at least 17 power play goals. I mean, that is absolute offensive depth. It's on the defensive end that I worry about Toronto. But as long as Nylander and Matthews and Marner have their usual offensive years, I don't see any reason why Toronto can't make a lot of noise in the postseason. St. Louis Blues, I mean, this is a team that's made some recent news. Robbie Fabry, their young center, is recovering from a torn ACL, or who was recovering from a torn ACL last February. He's going to miss the entire 2017-2018 season after re-injuring that left knee during a preseason game last week. He was penciled in as their third-line center, and this is just another blow to the St. Louis Blues, who have, this whole postseason, it's been nothing but injuries for St. Louis. So hopefully they can get healthy. Hopefully they can hang in there until everybody can get back. But this has not been a good offseason for the St. Louis Blues. So that's something to watch in the opening week as well. The Anaheim Ducks, who sit at 14-1, they, like Colorado, didn't make any dramatic changes to the roster. But unlike Colorado, they have a pretty good roster to begin with. They did come within 2 wins of reaching the Stanley Cup final last season, and that would be for the 3rd time in their history. They've won 5 straight Pacific Division titles, and they were 14-2-3 over the final 5 weeks. So I think that they feel pretty good about themselves, where they were, where they finished up. Unfortunately, it wasn't a Stanley Cup appearance, but I think when it's all said and done, I think they have to feel pretty good about what they've accomplished that season. They do have a few injuries right now. They have to overcome injuries to Ryan Kessler, one of their top centers. Hampus Lindholm, their defenseman, is out, and Sammy Vatanen, also another defenseman, is out as well. So that leaves some openings in the lineup. But overall, I think Anaheim is pretty solid. I don't think they're going to have as good of a season as they had last year, because I think a lot of guys had career years, and I also worry about where all the goal scoring is going to come from. But they're very sound defensively, and of course it comes down to Gibson and goal. If they can play well defensively, that carries most teams into the postseason. Another story we're going to look at too is the Detroit Red Wings, who are sitting at 200-1 right now, and rightfully so. That's about where they should be. But look, this team's got a brand new arena opening. Little Caesars Arena is going to be opening in downtown Detroit. This is an organization that failed to make the playoffs last season for the first time since 1990. That was the 3rd longest in NHL history. And, they added Trevor Daley. They found out that they're still in limbo with Athanasiou. So we don't know exactly where he's going to be, whether he's going to be with Detroit or he's going to be at the AHL level. That's still a choice to be made. But it is going to be interesting to see, just from the perspective of they're playing in a new building, which is always exciting, but also how they rebound from one of their worst years in recent memory. The Boston Bruins that come in at 30-1, and if you've read my write-ups on SBR, you know that I'm pretty high on the Boston Bruins. I think Zdeno Chara, even at 40 years old, is going to have a fantastic year, and he's going to be paired up with Brandon Carlo, who I think is just going to get better and better. That next pairing of McQuaid and Krug, and then Kevin Millar, of course, is probably going to be with McAvoy. I think they're pretty solid defensively, and I think there's a lot better than they were last year. If you look at their first line, if you take Pasternak, Bergeron, and Marchand, that first line I can compare to anybody in the league. So I think Boston, if they can get solid goaltending out of Tuukka Rask, cross your fingers Tuukka doesn't get hurt, because we have no idea where they're going backup wise. And if you remember last year, backup wise, they were horrific. So Tuukka's got to have a Vezina Trophy winning year, or at least be in the conversation for Boston to have success. But I think they're going to be better defensively, and I think they still have plenty of offensive firepower. It really just comes down to goaltending for me. Philadelphia Flyers is going to be interesting. They're sitting at 50-1 right now, and why they're interesting to me, and one of the one of the top 10 stories that I kind of look at is, it's going to be interesting to see how Nolan Patrick kind of intertwines himself with that organization. I mean, he was supposed to be, the #1 overall pick. He supposedly was going to go to New Jersey at one point because, ultimately they ended up having the #1 pick, but then he dropped to #2. He had a sports hernia injury that if you will look at him on the ice right now, he looks extremely solid. He looks confident. He says he feels stronger. And that's an injury that caused him to fall from 1 to 2 because, of course, Nico Hischier went to New Jersey instead. And I think if I'm Nolan Patrick, I'm going to have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder going into the season. And there's nothing more than I like than top athletes that have a little chip on their shoulder because they have something to prove. And so I think that's going to benefit Philadelphia. I know Hischier is having a fantastic preseason, but I think ultimately when it's all said and done, I think the Philadelphia Flyers will have a much better season than New Jersey. I'm not going to get excited about preseason success. And last but not least, the Vegas Golden Knights start their season against the Arizona Coyotes on the 5th of October. Of course, they will play their first home game at T-Mobile Arena on the 10th of October. It's extremely exciting. I mean, from opening up against Dallas to their home opener against Arizona, I mean, this town is really fired up for NHL hockey. And it's, they've gone through all this time of people saying it would never work in Las Vegas. And, why would you put a team in the desert when you have a perfectly good arena in Quebec and you have franchises that are failing? Well, the one thing that people don't know about the city of Las Vegas is they don't understand that the makeup of the people in this town will not allow this to fail. This is something that's been long overdue, and the people of this town has been talking about having a professional sports team for the very longest time. And unfortunately, they've been underneath the blanket of the gaming industry, and these professional sports teams have said, oh, we don't want anything to do with Vegas because of professional gambling or sports gambling. Well, that's ridiculous because, would you rather have your teams in a city where there's illegal wagering going on, which we all know happens, or do you want to have them in a city where it's regulated, where people actually care about the sports? I'm glad that the world kind of woke up to what's going on here in Las Vegas because honestly, this is going to be a fantastic success. If the other night against the Los Angeles Kings is any indication, where 17,000 people showed up at an exhibition game, I think that this Vegas Golden Knight team, win or lose this year, is going to be one of the premier teams in the National Hockey League. So, all right, so that's my top 10 stories. And of course, you could throw in the Pittsburgh Penguins because it's always interesting to see if they could three-peat as well. But that's kind of my top 10 stories that I'm looking at going into the season. And of course, we'll have selections on SBR picks every single day, or at least in a write-up form or a video form every single day. So appreciate your time. We look forward to the start of the season. Sit back and relax because I think it's going to be a good one. Thanks a lot for watching.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.